Good day, and welcome to Trusting God at All Times, a daily devotion of Peakland United Methodist Church in Lynchburg, Virginia. I'm John Vest. I'm the pastor here at the church. Are you a mess? I don't mean getting up with bad hair or needing a shave. And I'm not referring to the state of the cleanliness of your house. I'm talking about you, your inner workings, the health of your spirit, your soul. Are you, at times, a mess? I hope so. I really do. And I mean that in the best of ways. When the pandemic first began, and we hunkered down in concern and fear and anger and all the rest, let's face it, things were a mess. And we started to say, but we're all in the same boat. And then we realized that wasn't true. Life being what it is, some communities had a much harder time with things than other communities. Some families suffered greatly while others lived as though we're just going through a seasonal flu. And we discovered the point is not that we are in the same boat because our boats are quite different, but we all are in the same storm. And that was a powerful realization. Have you seen that picture of the two dogs, both of them white, that run through the same mud puddle? The larger dog has mud up to her knees, while the smaller dog has mud all the way up to his belly. They went through the same storm, the same puddle, but had very different experiences. Haven't you ever felt like the mud was up to your belly? Maybe even higher? And have you maybe wondered why other people just didn't seem to get it? Haven't you ever felt like you couldn't catch a break? Haven't you ever been in a mess? Haven't you ever been a mess? Well, my friend, rejoice, because that might say something good about you, something that makes you a good friend, a good family member, something that makes you a good person. Author and activist Glennon Doyle Melton, who has founded an all-women-led nonprofit called Together Rising that supports women, families, and children in crisis. She's written in one of her books, I understand now that I'm not a mess, but a deeply feeling person who lives in a messy world. I explain to people that now when someone asks me, why do you cry so much? I say, for the same reason I laugh so much. Because I'm paying attention. Paying attention. Do you know how sheep become lost? They don't get together at night like some Gary Larson cartoon and the ram with the big horns stands on his hind legs and whispers, tonight's the night, fellas. We're busting out of here. That's not how it happens. Basically, sheep nibble themselves lost. To keep their heads down, they don't pay attention to what's going on around them, and one blade of grass leads to another until they nibble themselves under the fence and across an adjacent field. And after a while, they realize, wow, I'm in a mess. The best way to stay out of a mess really is to pay attention to your life, what's happening, what's going on. And if you do that, you might actually become a mess, but to a certain extent, that's okay. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking about overdoing it. Yes, it is possible to get so caught up in what we see and experience in life, especially the lives of other people, that it becomes unhealthy. But I think the world might actually be a better place if we did get a little messy with each other. When we lived in Chesapeake years ago, I was coming home from church, and on the street just before our street, I saw several police cars with flashing lights and some neighbors out in their yards. I knew no one, but I did recognize my neighbors. So I stopped and walked up to a stranger and said, look, I don't mean to meddle, but I live one street over. Is everything all right? And the stranger explained to me, we think there might be a prowler going through our yards. And then the stranger said what stayed with me, don't worry about meddling. I think it's a good thing. We neighbors ought to meddle a little bit. So, if you find yourself a little too caught up in the ups and downs of other people. Rejoice, at least you're paying attention, and that's a good thing. Even Jesus asked, "Who among you, if your son asks for bread, will give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent?" Knowing what our neighbor needs may very well be the first step into caring for that neighbor as we ought to. It might get messy, but it might be worth it. So, being a mess might not be all that bad. It is worth pondering. So, let it be. Amen.